A fast-moving wildfire in Northern California exploding in size and forcing people from their homes. Tonight, authorities have arrested a man who they say started this huge fire. That fast-moving fire in Northern California, again, continuing to grow in size, and authorities have made that arrest. And they say the man is accused of pushing a burning car into dry brush during hot, windy weather. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. What's being called the Park Fire has burned 120,000 acres near the city of Chico. KTVU's Zach Sass is at the scene of this fire tonight with a look at some of the damage that's already been caused.
You can see the massive plume of smoke being created by this fire just over my shoulder. Why there are still so many mandatory evacuations in place right now. We have heard harrowing stories from people who've had to escape this fire with really just the clothes on their back. One person telling us that their car caught fire as they were trying to drive out. We've come across several homes in the area that were overtaken by the flames. At one, you can see right through to the kitchen. The only perhaps good news right now, CAL FIRE telling us it is now burning away from the city of Chico, away from the most heavily populated parts of this region. The fire first reported yesterday afternoon around 3 o'clock. Overnight, those strong winds feeding it with gusts around 24 miles per hour. Crews fighting this both from the sky and on the ground right now with dozers, other heavy equipment, working to establish those fire lines. I spoke with a woman earlier, not in the evacuation zone, but nervously watching on, getting emotional.
Even though my home's safe, it's just all the beautiful land and people that have had to evacuate. It's just traumatic. And to have it so close to our home, obviously it upset me, and I didn't realize how much it would.
And authorities say this fire, believed to have been caused by a 42-year-old man who pushed a burning car into a canyon at Upper Bidwell Park yesterday afternoon. The suspect, identified as Ronnie Stout, now under arrest. The DA's office releasing this photo of the burned car earlier today. He is being held without bail. His arraignment scheduled for next week. Meantime, 3,500 people now facing mandatory evacuations. In Chico, Zach Sass, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
And that wildfire in Northern California, just one of dozens of fires burning across the West tonight. In Oregon, crews are continuing to fight the largest fire in the country right now. Authorities say the Durkee fire has grown to over 260,000 acres with no containment. Evacuation orders remain in effect for parts of Malheur and Baker counties. The Durkee fire is one of more than 30 wildfires burning across Oregon, with crews working in hot, dry conditions. For more, let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Roberta Gonzalez, who has a look at the weather conditions those firefighters are facing. Plus, Roberta, a bit of a shift in the pattern here midweek.
And Alex, what is so concerning is you have that Durkee fire, and that is burning out of control in Oregon. Plus, you have smoke from the Park Fire that's going to be drifting into Oregon as well. So not great air quality for folks that do live in Oregon, Nevada, or in Idaho. Let's take a look at the current conditions in the Chico area due to that Park Fire that's continuing to burn out of control. Red flag warnings in effect until 11 o'clock on Friday. I do imagine this will extend through the weekend, because nothing's going to really change. The winds are going to continue to ramp up, and the relative humidity is going to continue to drop. Now, at this hour, we do have that relative humidity at 16%, an air temperature of 99 degrees, southwest winds at 10 miles per hour. Now, what is in the forecast? Well, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, 70 degrees. Humidity is a little bit juicier at 48%, a little bit more moisture in the atmosphere. But notice throughout the day, as the humidity drops, the winds do increase, and the temperature will bank anywhere between 98 and 102 degrees for those firefighting efforts. Let's take a look at the plume, this smoke plume. It looks like there you have it from the Park Fire, and then you have the Durkee fire. The two continue to merge, and as they do so, boy, the air quality will deteriorate. Now, today's high temperatures around the state of California: 102 degrees in Redding, 103 at the state capitol, 108 in Fresno, 120 in Palm Springs, Springs, and check it out. Las Vegas in Nevada, 114, while Phoenix topped off at 112 degrees. In the Pacific Northwest, we did have a pleasant day today. Sure, a few clouds skirted across the horizon. 73 degrees in Seattle. Meanwhile, let's take it to San Francisco, where that fog bank, the marine layer, is now gathering. 71 degrees. Average high temperature this time of the year in San Francisco is 67 degrees. Phoenix topped off at 112, but the monsoons are developing at this hour. And meanwhile, in the Los Angeles area, a bit of haze at 89 degrees. Meanwhile, we're talking about current air temperature, 90 degrees in Reno, 92 in Salt Lake City. Monsoonal activity pretty much isolated right now into the south. We do have high pressure, still the key component over California and also over the Pacific Northwest. But this area of low pressure is going to merge with another system to the south. Together, cooler conditions along the west coast, anywhere from Seattle through Portland into the state of California and backing into Vegas as well. 92 degrees in Denver tomorrow, but over the weekend, warmer conditions, and we'll cool down ever so gently in throughout Phoenix. Los Angeles over the weekend, temperatures finally seasonal for the summertime.
All right, it is good to see at least a slight cool down. Roberta, thank you for that. Tonight, first responders in for a worker who remains missing after the roof of a commercial building collapsed. It happened during a strong monsoon storm last night. The warehouse houses a commercial distribution company, and crews are worried the roof could potentially collapse even further. 2 canines were brought to the scene to search for that missing worker. Neighbors say the system that moved through the valley last night was different from other monsoon storms.
I was crying. I was so scared.
I just heard the porch was swinging. The window's hard.
It was scary. My daughter was screaming. We were like really scared.
Have you been through anything like this before?
No, not before. Not experienced anything like that before.
And that powerful storm snapped power lines, leaving thousands of people across Phoenix in the dark and without air conditioning at a time when temperatures are well above 100 degrees in the valley.
There are no longer any excuses.
A major announcement today from California Governor Gavin Newsom as he makes a big push for homeless encampments to be cleared all across the state. Newsom issued an executive order today calling on state agencies to develop plans to begin those sweeps and urging cities and counties to develop their own plans to address those who are living on the streets. In Los Angeles, most city leaders are on board with the governor's effort, but Mayor Karen Bass pushed back today, criticizing the governor's order. We begin our coverage on this announcement tonight with Fox 11's Hal Eisner, who talked with city officials in Los Angeles about what happens next.
I don't think there's anything more urgent and more frustrating than addressing the issue of encampments in the state of California.
Citing public health and public safety, Governor Gavin Newsom wants state agencies to start removing homeless encampments on state properties. He wants cities and counties to do the same, although they're not legally bound to do so under the order.
Today, we've invested now over $1 billion in encampment resolution grants, not only clean up sites like this.
With a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling allowing cities to enforce bans on sleeping outside in public spaces, he's taking action.
There are no longer any excuses.
L.A. Mayor Karen Bass is pushing back, saying strategies that just move people along from one neighborhood to the next or give citations instead of housing do not work. On the county level, Supervisor Catherine Barger says,
I welcome what the governor's doing. I believe it's a first step toward addressing these encampments that are popping up and getting bigger that can't be ignored.
She wants a regional effort. Meanwhile, County Supervisor Janice Hahn, in a statement, says encampments are not safe for anyone, not for the people who live in them, and not for the residents around them. What Governor Newsom is ordering the state to do is what LA County is doing with our Pathway Home program. That program moves people from encampments to various contract hotels. Hahn says the county has gotten $51 million from the governor to deal with encampments along the 105 freeway and wants the work to begin as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Inglewood Mayor James Butt says his officers have been moving encampments for years, but worries about the freeways.
A lot of encampments on the freeway. That's extremely unsafe. This is something that I think is prudent. It's time for it, and I think it sends a good message for promoting order.
And that was Fox 11's Hal Eisner reporting tonight from Southern California. Reaction to Governor Newsom's executive order has been pouring in throughout the day. Many critics arguing it won't change anything. Some communities across Southern California have been dealing with homeless camps near homes and businesses for quite some time, and they say they have seen this cycle before. As for some of those who are living on the streets right now, they say the help offered has yet to materialize, or it just doesn't fit their needs.
They kind of just threw me in a hotel room, gave me a bed, but it kind of sucks that I don't get to choose my roommate.
I'm on a list that they come back and check every now and then, and they check back in with me, but so far nothing's happened.
There's been only one person that really tried helping, and unfortunately, I don't know what happened to her.
Meantime, in the Bay Area, homeless advocates are weighing in on this order, and they say they worry it criminalizes homelessness rather than focusing on giving people the support they need. KTVU's Christian Captain continues our coverage now from San Francisco, where city leaders are confident this effort to clear homeless camps is the push they need.
A month after the United States Supreme Court ruled that governments could clear homeless camps, California Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order aimed at clearing homeless encampments on state property. The governor saying on X, formerly known as Twitter, that the time has come for action.
Today I announced an executive order to move the process forward. We're done. It's time to move with urgency.
The directive orders state agencies to follow a similar plan to the one Caltrans has used for several years, giving encampment residents 48 hours notice and holding on to their belongings for 2 months. The governor also urging cities to apply for grant funding from Proposition 1 passed earlier this year to expand mental health care.
Where in the past we provided no support, no resources to cities and counties to clean up encampments like this. Today, we've invested now over $1 billion in encampment resolution grants, not only to clean up sites like this, but to address the underlying issue in the first place.
San Francisco's Mayor London Breed says she's already planning on proceeding with the city's plans to begin sweeping encampments in August, saying the goal is to get people into shelters and on the path to permanent housing.
We're hopeful we make it so uncomfortable for people that they accept our offer. That's what this is about. This is not just about cleaning and clearing, because these are people and they got to go somewhere.
Jennifer Friedenbach from the Coalition on Homelessness says these measures criminalize homelessness and don't do anything to resolve the underlying causes of homelessness, like a lack of affordable housing or adequate mental health care.
To say we're going to go out and we're going to arrest folks, or we're going to clamp down, it kind of indicates that somehow people are there by choice when they're not.
A recent study found that California has 171,000 homeless residents. That's about 1/3 of the nation's homeless population. State Republican leaders are coming out in support of the plan, but blasting the governor for taking too long in their estimation to make this push. In San Francisco, Christian Captain, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
And coming up tonight on West Coast Wrap, more on efforts to address this crisis. We'll have details on a pilot program in California using artificial intelligence to help keep people from becoming homeless. Plus,
my injuries were a lot worse than I had imagined, and it was scary. It was a whirlwind of emotions for me.
2 city workers in Las Vegas recovering in the hospital tonight. Will explain how an effort to deal with the problem of copper wire theft almost cost them their lives. A first-of-its-kind experiment has launched in California, where researchers are using artificial intelligence to help prevent homelessness. Los Angeles County is partnering with UCLA's California Policy Lab for this pilot project. Researchers created an AI algorithm that analyzes data on tens of thousands of residents who previously received county services. This evaluates their risk of becoming homeless. Social workers then directly call those people to offer services. The lab's executive director says being proactive also increases government capacity.
It also helps our government use resources more efficiently. If they can help someone with a smaller amount of money before they become homeless, then you might avoid having to pay for fully subsidized housing or shelter beds.
The Policy Lab's director says most of the people helped so far through the program were identified and supported just before they almost lost their housing. 2 Las Vegas city workers are recovering tonight after they were nearly killed by electric shock as they were installing new overhead streetlights. Roger Alvarado lost his right hand and left foot. He's had 10 surgeries and more are expected. He says he and coworker Tommy Weiland were installing those new lines last month because thieves had been constantly stealing the copper wire from the streetlights.
Run the copper wire or the new aluminum wire overhead. So we were going up in the bucket up in the air to do that. I guess we just got too close to the NV Energy high voltage line and it just jumped to us. So I passed out for maybe 10 seconds and he was out for a lot longer than me. So I told them to take him.
Tommy Weiland has had 6 surgeries so far and more are planned. He's lost his right foot. Both families have started GoFundMe accounts to help in their recoveries. A climb to the top of Half Dome in Yosemite National Park ended tragically for an Arizona college student. 20-year-old Grace Roloff died after she slipped and fell several hundred feet. It happened earlier this month as she and her father were descending from the top of Half Dome on a section of the hike where climbers hold on to cables. Her father says the pair were caught in a sudden storm and heavy rain made the rocks slick. Roloff's father remembers those horrifying moments as the sky suddenly darkened.
It was just sheer terror, and I was telling her, stop, 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 because you see your daughter start to fall, and you hope that like anything that she can stop on anything versus going down. I thought I might be able to get to her, so I just flew down those cables. I threw a little bit of caution to the wind looking back on it to try to get to her, and so I couldn't make it down to her, but I continued to yell out to her and let her know, hey, I'm here, I love you. Hear my voice, I'm not going to leave you.
Grace fell roughly 250 feet. Her father says that he is sharing his daughter's story not only to keep her memory alive, but to also advocate for a safer cable system at Half Dome. He says he doesn't want any other hikers to lose their lives. Vice President Kamala Harris, the likely Democratic presidential nominee, met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this afternoon. In a one-on-one meeting, Harris urged Netanyahu to reach a ceasefire deal with Hamas to end the fighting in Gaza. Since launching her campaign earlier this week, Harris has been under pressure to define her position on the war, and she maintained Israel does have a right to defend itself. But the vice president also said she expressed serious concern to Netanyahu about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, saying millions of Palestinians are facing food insecurity.
There has been hopeful movement in the talks to secure an agreement on this deal. And as I just told Prime Minister Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. So to everyone who has been calling for a ceasefire, and to everyone who yearns for peace, I see you and I hear you.
And earlier today, Prime Minister Netanyahu met with President Biden. It was the first time the two leaders met in person since the president's visit to Israel shortly after Hamas's October 7th attack. White House officials say agreements over a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are in the final stages. As they were meeting today, protesters gathered outside the White House calling for an end to the war in Gaza. Pro-Palestine and pro-Israel protesters gathered near the White House in Lafayette Square. Some Gaza war protesters dumped red paint into the street in front of an effigy of Netanyahu. These protests come one day after thousands of people demonstrated in Washington, D.C. as Netanyahu addressed a joint session of Congress. The Israeli prime minister is also scheduled to meet with former President Trump tomorrow at Mar-a-Lago. Netanyahu is hoping to turn the page on his relationship with Trump after the two had a falling out after the 2020 elections when Netanyahu congratulated President Biden on his victory. And this weekend, former President Trump will be back out on the campaign trail. He's scheduled to appear alongside his running mate, J.D. Vance, at a rally in Minnesota on Saturday. And then coming up next week, Vance will be headed west, planning to hold a rally in Henderson, Nevada, outside Las Vegas. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, we're learning more about the intense moments when a young teenager was stomped on by another player during a youth basketball game. We'll hear from the victim's family, and we'll have more on their call to action. Plus, Southwest Airlines says goodbye to its open seating policy, the reason for the change, and how passengers are reacting. We're learning more tonight about a teenager who was stomped on by an opposing player at a youth basketball game in the Bay Area. We told you about this story last night on the show. The injured teen lives near Sacramento, and his family is outraged about what happened. Reporter Carolina Estrada spoke with the family's attorney as they look for answers.
Two Elk Grove parents are outraged after a teen basketball player stomped on their son's head during a game in the Bay Area Sunday night.
Another participant on the other team, while their son was on the floor, seemed to intentionally stomp his head.
It happened within seconds during an inbound play. Seth Ginup gets the ball, and a player from the opposing team tries to take it away from him. Seth falls to the floor. That's when a third player intervenes and stomps his head. We have paused the video before the impact. The referee is then seen restraining the player and walking him off the court.
He was taken to the hospital. He is suffering from a concussion. He has been under medical care and examination.
Kathleen Alpars, the family's lawyer, says their 13-year-old son is recovering from his injuries. The family shared photos taken minutes after it happened.
So far, no one has reached out directly to the family.
KCRA 3 contacted the opposing team Paints Place. In a statement, they say the kid is not playing anymore or part of the program and is getting help.
We're insisting on corrective measures. We're insisting on the safety of our children to be reevaluated so these situations like this don't happen again.
Alameda police are investigating. For the Ginups, this is not only about protecting their son.
A lot of questions remain unanswered, but again, their interest in protecting the health and safety of their child as well as other children participating in any form of sports is paramount.
And that was Carolina Estrada reporting tonight from Sacramento. Finally tonight, some big changes are coming to Southwest. The airline announced today it is getting rid of open seating and switching to assigned seats. There's no word on how soon the seating policy will take effect, but change is coming for Southwest. The airline planning to release some more details later this fall. Flyers had mixed reactions.
I think it would be a little bit more efficient. You know, you don't have to the way they do it now, you kind of have to get there early and everybody bunches up.
I like the idea, if I get checked in early enough to be in that first group, to have that first come first serve without having to pay the fee to be up front.
Southwest says a survey found that about 80% of its customers actually prefer a seat assignment and the option to pay more for premium seats.
No longer seen to be a sort of a really good airline for business people to fly because its frequent flyer plan is not as good. You can't use those frequent flyer points to fly to Europe, for example, like you can with some of the other airlines.
Southwest also announced it will now be offering overnight red-eye flights as well. That is something it has never done in its history. But boy, no more open seating soon on Southwest. Certainly the end of an era for that airline. That does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. A reminder, before we go, you can stay up to date on all the stories we're covering at westcoastwrap.com. Have a great night.